Welcome to our third lesson for the grade 10 to 11 geography lesson series from NANCOL. Our lesson for today is river processes or alternative to coursework. My name is Eno Ankonga. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe equipments and methodologies for measuring the width and depth across the channel, the gradient of the slopes, the speed of flow, and the size and shape of bed loads. We are going to break down our first objective into specific basic competency so that we can deal with each measurement separately. The specific basic competency are: describe the equipment and methodology for measuring width of the river channel, depth of the river channel, gradient of the slope, speed of flow, size and shape of the bed load. Width. When we are measuring the width of the river across the channel, we need the following equipment: measuring tape, ranging poles, and a recording sheet. After we have correctly identified our equipments and measuring sites, we will do the following to measure the width of the river. Place one ranging pole on each river bank. Stretch the measuring tape across the river channel from the edge of one bank to the other bank and measure the width. Depth. When we are measuring the depth across the channel, we need the following equipments: measuring rope, recording sheet, meter ruler, ranging pole. After we have identified the correct equipments that we need and suitable sites which are safer, we do the following to measure the depth of the river. Place one ranging pole on each bank. Take a rope and stretch it across the river on the edge of one bank to each pole. Mark equal intervals on the rope, example 0.5 meter. Take the meter ruler and place it at each interval by putting it vertically until it touches the river bed and measure the depth. Gradient of the slope. When we are measuring the gradient of the slope, we need the following equipment: clinometer, ranging pole, rope, recording sheet, measuring tape. When we are measuring the gradient of the slope, you place a ranging pole at each break off in the slope. Use a measuring tape and measure the distance between the two ranging poles and record it. Stretch a rope at the top of one ranging pole to the top of the other ranging pole. Place a clinometer at the top of the first pole and measure the angle of the slope. Check for accuracy and record the angle of the slope. Speed of flow or velocity can be measured in two ways, either using a float or a flow meter. It is important that you know how to use these methods correctly. We need the following equipments: float. Please do not give example of floating objects. Flow meter, stopwatch, measuring tape, recording sheet, and two ranging poles. Remember, float and the flow meter, they just have one mark. We will start with when using a flow meter. Mark equal intervals at varying depth across the stream. Place the flow meter at each interval to measure and record the velocity. Repeat several times for accuracy and record. We'll look at how to measure velocity using a float. Place one ranging pole upstream and the other one downstream, meaning one ranging pole must be placed along the stream and not across the streams. Use a measuring tape and measure the distance between the two ranging poles. Take a float and a stopwatch. Release the float into the water at the beginning of the first pole while starting the stopwatch. This should be done precisely at the exact time. Stop the stopwatch immediately when the float reaches the second pole. Record the time the float traveled downstream between the two poles. Repeat the exercise several times and at different sites to compare the results and get average.
Shape and size of bed load.
When measuring the size and the shape of the bed load, we also need to know how to pick the bed loads so that our methods of selecting pebbles are a fair coverage and representation of the area so that we avoid bias.
So let us look at how we can select pebbles for measurement. Pebbles can be picked up using systematic method sampling by selecting pebbles at the meter ruler ranging pole, which is at least at every second meter intervals across the stream. Pebble can also be picked up by blindfolding a person. The person take random 5 steps, pick up any pebble next to their right or left toe. We will now look at how to measure the size of the pebble. Remember, you may be required to give both method of selecting bed loads and method of determining their size and shape of pebbles. How to measure the size of pebbles? We open the arms of the calipers, place the pebbles on its long axis inside the caliper. We then close the arms of the caliper tightly and measure the long axis of the pebbles. We record the measurement and remember not to say bed loads but pebbles. How to measure the shape of the pebbles? Determine the picked up pebbles and compare them to the roundness chart index to determine the shape and record the measurement. Weighted perimeters. It is also important that we know how to measure the weighted perimeter of the river. To measure the weighted perimeter of the area, we need the following equipment: chain, measuring tape. How do we then measure the weighted perimeter? Use a chain to measure the distance that the water is in contact with the river bed. Measure the length of the chain by using a measuring tape. We may also be asked to show how to measure the cross section of the area, which is the amount of discharge in the area. This can be obtained by using a simple calculation of multiplying the width with the average depth.
This brings us at the end of our lesson. We are now going to do the following activity.
Discuss what safety measurement you should take when selecting site for your investigation at any local stream. Work out the cross-sectional area for the following measurement. Discuss what safety measurement you should take when selecting sites for investigation at a local stream. Safety should be a priority. For example, conducting an investigation in water that is below knee level. Do not carry out an investigation in fast-flowing water. Look out for slippery rocks and surface. Carry mobile cell phones with in case of an emergency. Check the weather forecast and wear clothes suitable for the weather. And be careful of dangerous tamed animals such as snakes. Look for sites or rivers that has many variations.
Thank you for your time. Until we meet again.